Hello everybody, Pilot H with yet another video. In this video we'll be going through how to start up and set up the 737 from a cold and dark state. Before I start, I would just like to point out that setting up the airplane and making it ready for flight is something which will require good use of airmanship. You cannot stress or rush through any steps, and you have to exercise strict adherence to checklists and procedures. Starting up the 737 or starting up any airplane is associated with a lot of threats, specifically misconfiguration of the airplane and the airplane systems, or maybe not doing all the required checks. This could come back and bite you later during the flight. But without further ado, how would a real 737 pilot start up the airplane? Well, the first thing I would do in the mornings in my airline, we would find the airplane in a cold and dark state. The first thing I would do is check the aircraft's maintenance status. Behind the captain's seat right here, housed just in front of the jump seat, there will be a tech log. Inside of the tech log, you will find any relevant hills or hold item list. This could be defects, perhaps your APU is not functioning, and then you need to figure out how that would affect your flight for the day. You would also find notice to aircrew, which would be some information telling the pilots of any discrepancies or informations they should know about this specific airplane compared to some other airplanes in the fleet. You would also check the ship's library and make sure that you're carrying all the manuals you need. And most of them will be housed just beneath this jump seat right here. Here you can see a picture of the 737 flight manual. Once we have checked all the manuals and paperwork, we can now go ahead and start up the airplane. The first thing we're going to be doing is to turn on the battery switch. The battery switch will be found on the electrical panel right here, and it is the black guarded switch. If you move down the guard, it is guarded to the on position. This will turn on the battery, and the airplane now has DC power. After that, we're going to make sure that our landing gear lever is down, and we're going to be looking for 3 green lights. We all know of these 3 green lights. They mean that landing gear is down and locked. But some people may or may not know that up here on the overhead panel, we actually have 3 more lights. These work as a redundant system to the primary ones. If you have 3 lights on any of these, you can consider the gear down and locked. But before the start of the flight, we're going to make sure that we have all 6. After that, we can go ahead and turn on our electric hydraulic pumps. And make sure that the ground power is available to us. If not, we may have to start our APU at this stage. As you can see, we do have ground power, so we can go ahead and hook up the ground power to the airplane. The airplane is now powered by the DC and the AC power sources, meaning the airplane is fully powered up now and you can start any relevant system. Once all the power is provided to the airplane, you can actually go ahead and do the fire tests. This is the fire panel, and it is here you will start doing the fire test. The first thing we're going to do is to check the fault in op system. You're going to move this towards the left. This is the fault in op, and you're going to make sure that you have a master caution, overheat detection. So we'll do that again just to demonstrate. If you move it to the left, and if you look up here, you can see that the master caution light is illuminated together with the overheat detection light. We're then going to have a look at our fire panel and make sure that we have the fault and the APU detection in op lights. If any of these 2 lights fail to illuminate, it means that there is a fault in the fault protection circuit. If the APU detection and op circuit does not illuminate here, do not power up the APU, for example. After that, we're going to do the fire and overheat warning test. Before you do that, you could advise the ground personnel that you're going to be doing the test, because there will be a fire warning in the main wheel well as well. warning ground crew that there is a fire. So once we've done that, we're going to move this towards the right. We're going to make sure that all 3 fire handles are illuminated together with the wheel well warning. We can now silence the warning by pressing the fire bell cutout switch either on either sides, or the bell cutout switch which is placed on the fire panel. As you note right here, the wheel well fire warning is illuminated. This indicates that there is a overheat condition in the wheel well. This will only illuminate if you have an AC powered airplane. If the wheel well fire does not illuminate, this would mean that there's a fault with the wheel well detection system. After this, we're going to be having a look at the extinguisher circuits. We're going to move them to the left and to the right and make sure that all 3 green lights illuminate each time. The left and the right light here is for the engines, and the bottom one is for the APU. First, now we can start the APU if we desire, because now we are confident that if there is a APU fire, the APU fire warning would go on. That being said, in real airline operations, we'll try to delay the APU start for as long as possible, just to be able to save some fuel. Also, this will reduce noise and pollution as well. But as this is a flight simulator, we can go ahead and start the APU now. As we are up here already, we're going to be going ahead and turning on the emergency exit lights. The emergency exit lights will be guarded to the arm position, but you could manually turn them on by moving the switch to the on position. To move it to the on, you need to lift up the guard and physically move the switch itself to the on position, but it is guarded to the arm position. Whilst you're here, make sure that a 10 button works. There shall be a chime in the cabin, and a light will also illuminate on the cabin stations. Now we can go ahead and fall down here and have a look at our flap position and our flap indicator. They should be in agreement. If they're not, there is a fault with the flaps, as the airplane is fully powered up and the elec pumps are now working. We're going to then be moving our throttles forward. This is to check that the takeoff configuration warning system works, and you do so by moving the throttles forward, and you can see that you will have a takeoff config warning. In some airplanes you will also have a takeoff config light, which will illuminate on both sides of the forward panel here. And after that, we can go ahead and do our cargo test, cargo fire warning test. You're going to make sure that discharge light illuminates both fire warnings and also the green lights here for the extinguisher. We're going to continue down, and there is a microphone here normally in my airline. This is hot wired to the PA system. We're going to be checking the operation of the PA microphone right now as well. Also down here you will find the gear pins, which you need to obviously count, make sure there's 3 of them. If not, you need to verify the position of the missing one. Make sure that it's not in the gear, as this will prevent that gear from being raised after departure. After that, we can actually start our pre-flight, and this is what we call a rainbow scan, because we're going to move up and down here almost as a rainbow. So the rainbow scan starts off from at the bottom here, and we're going to be checking all the circuit breakers. This panel here is the P6 panel, and then we're going to be checking the escape rope. We can actually open up this hatch and make sure that not only that the escape rope is there, but that it's actually attached to the fuselage. We're going to be moving up and turning on our voice recorder. The voice recorder is placed here. There is a on and auto button. You're going to move that to the on position. This will start the voice recorder. After that, we can go ahead and check our flight recorder. You will lift this guarded switch and move to the test position. The off light should extinguish. This means that the flight data recorder is operating correctly. Now, do not confuse this switch with this switch. It has happened in the 737 in real airlines that pilots will confuse the two switches, and as they try to do the flight recorder test, they will deploy the passenger oxygen mask. Moving this switch from normal to on will deploy every single oxygen mask in the cabin, and you're gonna have a very bad day. After that, we are gonna do our Mach airspeed warning test. You will press 1 and number 2 independently and verify that you will have the clacker. After that, we're going to be doing the stall warning test, number 1 and number 2. Now, the stall warning test is a little bit unique in the fact that it needs approximately 3 to 4 minutes with the AC transfer buses powered before the stall warning functions normally. So if it fails straight after startup, you might have to just wait a little bit, make sure that the airplane is on AC power for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then redo the test. You're just going to continue down towards our left here, and the next thing we're going to be checking is our engine panel here, and make sure that the reverse lights are extinguished, that our EECs are in the normal mode, meaning on position. There is a alternate mode, which is just black, but we're going to make sure that it is in the on position. There could also be a alt light here. After that, we're going to be checking our passenger oxygen switch here. Make sure that it's in normal. Do not touch it, but make sure that the passenger oxygen on light is extinguished. And we're going to move to our left. Make sure that the crew oxygen is sufficient for flight. Normally, we're looking at a figure of above 1100 psi for our first flight. As you can see here now, it's above 1500, so we're good to go. As we move to our left, the next switch we're going to be paying attention to is our service interphone switch. This switch will enable all the external service interphone jacks to be connected into the service interphone system. Moving the switch to off, all the service interphone switches will be disabled and they cannot communicate with the airplane. This excludes the cabin crew service interphone system, as they will always be active regardless of switch position. So place it as you desire for the day's operation. Moving left, we are now looking at the GPS light. Make sure that this is extinguished. Move down and turn your iris mode selectors to nav. As we do so, we're going to verify that both on DC lights illuminate. They should be illuminated momentarily, followed by a steady illumination of the line light, and then they should remain illuminated until the iris is ready to receive a position, and then they will be flashing. So we're going to go ahead and move these to nav position. You can observe the on DC. You got the steady align light, and once they're ready to receive a iris position, they will start flashing. As they work away, we're going to be checking the PSEU light. It's very important this light is extinguished. It is a non-dispatchable fault, so we have to make sure that the cause of the illumination is found and that the light is reset before you take off. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to be checking the captain's escape rope. Again, do not just check that the escape rope is in there, but open the hatch and physically tug on the rope to make sure that it is attached to the airplane structure. Now we're going to be checking the next circuit panel, the circuit breaker panel here, and this is called the P18 panel. And lastly, the crash axe. Make sure that it's stowed and secured. This is the safety inspection and the initial startup of the airplane, we can now actually go ahead and take our seat as we continue with the rest of the checks. So we are now in our seat. We have done the initial setup, and we can now start with the full setup. First thing we're going to be doing is checking our oxygen mask. We're going to make sure that the oxygen is in the 100% position. I'm unfamiliar with this specific oxygen mask system, but you're going to be doing the test, and as you do the test, you're going to be looking at your crew oxygen indicator here. So we're looking for a any decrease of more than 100 psi, or if it decreases rapidly, or if it's really slow to increase back to normal. This could be an indication that the valve is not in the full open position. So make sure that the crew oxygen mask is working before you actually depart the airplane. Next up is your EFIS control panel. Now this is your EFIS control panel. You're going to be setting this up as you desire. I would suggest that you will have terrain on, airports, and also traffic. As you can see now, we have TCAS fail and a map light because the iris position is not entered yet, and TCAS will remain illuminated fail until you actually turn it on using your TCAS panel. Also use VRs or ADFs as required. These are your RMIs, and once you're happy with the EFIS control panel, the captain is going to be checking his nose wheel steering switch, and the first officer is actually going to be doing the ground proximity warning system by pressing the system test. The nose wheel steering should be in the normal mode. Normally the nose wheel is powered by system A, but if there is a problem with system A, you could actually move this to the alternate system, and now system B will power the nose wheel steering. We can now start setting up our FMC. Go to FMC, and we're going to be starting at our ident page. Make sure that the airplane is the correct model, your engine ratings, your nav data is the correct update and revision, and that your software is up to date in accordance with your fleet. Now press position in it and start filling in the pages. Now in my case, we are in Echo Golf Sierra Sierra. Actually, this is a blatant lie because we are not there at all. We are actually in Gardermoen, which is Echo November Golf Oscar. Put that in the reference airport page. Now, as you can see, the set iris position have boxes, whereas the reference airport have dashes. The dashes mean that the information there is optional. It is not required for the airplane to function properly. But we're gonna nevertheless enter it. Is it Mike? My apologies. It is Echo November Golf Mike. And as you can see now, you have the last position and the reference airport position. And you can see that they are reasonable. If not, the airplane would tell you that there is some kind of problem with your reference airport. For example, if I had actually put in Stansted, as I was trying to do in the beginning, I will get a message here explaining that there is something unreasonable with that airport. But back to Gardermoen we go. And we're going to be setting the iris position. Now, you can see the position in it has 1 out of 4 pages. Using your previous and next page, you can cycle through the different pages. And what I suggest you do is that go to the next page, so position reference number 2. Use one of the GPS positions. These are by far the most accurate positions you have. They are more accurate than any kind of chart position. So select GPS, left or right. They should be the same. Press previous, go back to position init 1, and then you place it in here in the RS position, and you can see now the airplane is aligned, and the RS switches, the RS panel here will stop flashing, and the airplane is fully aligned now. As you can see now, it suggests that you go to the route page, so we'll do so, and it will pre-populate the scratch pad with Echo November Golf Mike, because it knows that you're gonna take off from the airport you're at. So we'll pre-populate the scratch pad, and you can just simply place it in the origin, and now you can fill in the destination. You see, the destination is mandatory. You need to fill in the destination. Today we're going to be going to Stansted. In the CO route, that's company route, if your airline has a company route, you can go ahead and fill that in, and it will pre-populate all the route pages for you. We're gonna fill in the flight number here. So today we are flight sim number 1. This data will then be transmitted down to ATC as well, and they will be able to see on their radar screens that you are transmitting flight sim number 1. And runway in use, let's just have a look. 19 left. 19 left. Again, now this is optional, but if you do put in the runway 19 left, the airplane will not only show you the runway initially, but if you now later go to depth arrival and select your departure, you can see that it will highlight 19 left for you. So again, we filled in the origin, the destination, our flight number, company route if you have, and then the runway you're expecting to take off from. After you've done this, you can go ahead and go to route page number 2 and start filling in your route. Personally, I prefer to enter the departure before. So I will always go to depth arrival, select my departure from Echo November Golf Mike. As you can see again, it will highlight 19 left. You can go ahead and select 19 left, and it will remove all irrelevant departures. Today we're going to be flying a OXA 1 Charlie departure. Select that, and now it will suggest that you go to your route page, which is absolutely correct. Go ahead and press that. That will take you back to the route page, and you can now fill in your the rest of the route. On the left side, you will enter all airways, and on the right side, you will enter any kind of directs. Today we don't have a full route. Instead, we're going to be flying direct to Barkway VR, Bravo Kilo Yankee, and I cannot place it on the left because that is via, and here you will only enter airways. So place it on the right side. Here I got two options. Another threat. Not only do I have the frequency, but I also have the coordinates to verify that I'm selecting the correct navigate. In our case, it's going to be the top one, but you have to make sure that you're selecting the correct one. There has been an accident where everybody died due to them selecting the incorrect navigate. After that, you go to your depth arrival, and you can go ahead and select arrival now. And it's going to be Echo Sierra Sierra. It's going to be ILS runway 22. And again, it will filter out any irrelevant stars. We're going to be flying a Abbott 1 Charlie, and select your transition. I have checked the place, and it's going to be an Abbott transition. And you can now go back to route page. And as you can see, we have a discontinuity because the route will actually take us to Barkway, but the arrival starts from Idisi. What I suggest you do now is to go to plan page. And we're going to be looking at our ND. Once you select the plan, and if you go to the legs page in your FMC, you will have the step feature. Selecting step will step through your routes. And we're looking for the discontinuity here. As you can see, it's going to go to Barkway, but from there it's going to jump to Idisi. So we need to rectify this problem. I will do so by selecting Charlie India 22, which is right here. And I'll put that after Barkway. So this is Barkway. I'll select the next page, and I'll select it up here. And as you can see now, we will fly to Barkway, and after Barkway I'll make a left turn towards the ILS. Once I'm happy and satisfied with the whole route, I go back to route page and I can now activate the route. So by activating it, you will now be able to execute the route. So we can go ahead and execute it, and you see that the cyan blue is now replaced with a magenta color, meaning and signifying that the route is now active. Once we're happy with the route page, we're going to continue with the FMC, but now we're going to be doing the performance. So looking at the performance, as you can see again, if I go back to our init.ref page, it will take me to performance init because it suggests that I should go here. If you're ever unsure where to go, always press init.ref. If it doesn't take you to the page you want, you will always have the index option at the bottom left. Wherever you are in the FMC, if you ever press performance init, if you ever press init.ref, it will bring up the index position, and from here on you can select where you want to go. We want to go to the performance page, so we can go ahead and select performance. Start from the bottom, work your way up, and then go to the right and work your way down. That's the way I do it. It seems to be working for me. Select your cost index. Now the cost index would be on your flight plan. Today we're going to be using a cost index of 30. The reserves will be on your flight plan. These are your final reserves, which are half an hour flight, plus your diversion fuel. Today is going to be 2.3 tons. The zero fuel weight you will also find on your flight plan. In the real airplane, you cannot just click here and get it up, but you actually have to check your load sheet. Select your cruise altitude, and we're going to be cruising at flight level 290 today. So we'll put 290 in there, and a cruise wind. Now the cruise wind is going to be your top of climb wind, and the computer will now use that top of climb wind to calculate a econ climb speed for you. So if you have it available, go ahead and enter it right there and execute. You can also see that we have a transition altitude. This you will find on your plates. In Europe, normally it's not 18,000, it will be something way lower. For example, I think Garden was 7,000, I'm not sure, but it'll be something in that region. As you can see now, the FMC is suggesting that you go to the N1 limit page, so go ahead and go to your N1 limit. You can fill in the temperature. In the real airplane, that temperature wouldn't be pre-populated. You would actually have to check the ATIS, get the current temperature, and fill it in there. And now we're going to be doing our performance. And in real life, doing the performance involves doing some calculations. Normally we'll use graph and tables, and we'll go in with the actual runway conditions and today's temperature, wind, pressure, and calculate the D rate and assume, and then also the airspeeds. Nowadays, we actually use a iPad to do the same calculations. We can with confidence select 22K and go to the takeoff page. Again, the airplane is, the FMC is suggesting which page to go to next. Select your takeoff flap. Flap 5 is used 99% of the times. So go ahead and select flap 5. I get an error message here saying the V speeds are unavailable. It's just because the airplane is filled up with fuel. So if you're using PMDG, you can go to FS Actions, Fuel, and then just lower the fuel. We'll select the airspeeds. You see we have a message here saying unable to 30 by Golf Mike 604. We have to look at this before we actually continue with the setup. So we'll have a look at this. And you can see this says 230. Now the airplane will be unable to accelerate to 230 by that waypoint. And looking at the plate says 230 or below on the airspeed. So put 230 below. If you anything without a kind of slash will always default to the right side. Because we want this speed to be on the left side, we need to enter that slash. And now we can put it up here. And we have now changed it to 230 or below on the airspeed. and the message has now disappeared. Okay, I don't know which page to go to. I want to go to the takeoff page again. So if I'm unsure how to get there, press initRef. And you can see initRef will take me either to index, and here I can select takeoff, or if I press initRef, it will just suggest go to M1 limit. I'll go to M1 limit. We're happy with this page. It will now suggest takeoff page, and I'm back at the takeoff page. As you can see now, we have 141, 143, and 150 on our speeds. So I will also place 150 in our MCP. The 150 is our V2 speed. This is the airspeed we're going to be flying if we have an engine failure. Now the airplane is smart in the way that it knows when the engine failed. So if the engine fails before V2, the flight directors will command a acceleration up to V2, and then it will command you to fly V2. If the engine fails after V2, until V2 plus 20, it will just command the current airspeed. And if the engine fails after V2 plus 20, it will command V2 plus 20. So your V2 speed is extremely important when it comes to engine failures. So the FMC is now fully set up. We are happy with all the pages, and we're just going to leave it in the takeoff page. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and set up our overhead panel. The overhead panel will be set up from up to down and from left to right. So the first thing we'll be checking is our flight controls. All these switches should be guarded. None of the lights should be on at the moment, except the yaw damper, which we're going to go ahead and turn on now. The yaw damper will not engage until the IR smoke selectors are in the nav position. It will engage before they are aligned though. Next up is going to be your navigation panel. Your VHF, your IRS, and FMC should all be in normal positions. Next up is the display. This should be in normal and auto. Normally the airplane would be left in this state as well. That does not mean that you should not check it. You should check it during every flight. Next up comes the fuel system. As you can see, the engine valve and the spar valves are closed for both engines. That's because the start lever is in the cutoff position. That is normal. We're going to be checking the crossfeed valve. We're going to be rotating the valve to open it. As you note, the light position here is bright. And then after it's been bright, it will actually turn dim. Now, bright means that it's not in the commanded position. So if I will demonstrate. I will close it. We know the valve is open because the light is dim. But when I close it, it will move from the closed position, from the open position to the closed position. And during that transition time, it is not in the commanded position. And thus the light will be illuminated bright. It's bright because it's moving. And once it's in the closed position, the light will go out. Again, it will open, it's bright. The valve is moving to the full open position. And once the valve is in the commanded position of open, the light will go dim. So once we're happy with the operation of the the crossfeed valve, we're going to go ahead and turn on the fuel pumps we're going to be using. Today we have no fuel in the center tank, so we're going to leave the center tank pumps off, and we'll be only using the main pumps here. Now we're going to be going to our electrical systems, and we're going to make sure the cabin, utility, IFE, pass seat switches are in the on position, and that the standby power is in the guard position, and the IDGs are also guarded. Next up is going to be our fasten belt, because we're going to leave this position, this panel as it is. We're using ground power still. If I wanted to, I could switch over to APU, but I'm just going to leave it on the ground source for the moment. So next up is the fasten belts. We can go ahead and turn that on once the fueling is complete. And after that, we're going to be moving up again, and we're going to be going to our window heat. So our window heat switches should be moved on, and they should also be on approximately 10 minutes before departure time to allow sufficient time for the window heat to actually heat up the windows. The probe heat should be in the off position normally, unless it is winter operations. In that case, you would actually turn them on right now, but for now, we can leave them in the off position. Make sure that the engine NTIs and the wing NTIs is in the off position, and that the hydraulic pumps are still on, and the lights, the E-leg lights, are extinguished, and the engine lights are on because the engines are not on, obviously. Next up comes the pressurization panel, and we're going to be checking that our diff pressure, which is the outer scale, is reading 0, and that the cabin altitude is reading the airfield elevation. The cabin climb rate should be 0. And now we're going to be looking at our air conditioning panel up here. We're going to be starting off with having a look at temperatures. So make sure that the cabin temperatures are okay. These two switches are for the cabin temperature, whereas these are the duct supply temperatures, and towards the right you will see the pack temperatures. Turn on the trim air if it's not on already, and make sure that the ram doors are open. Should always be open on the ground. Your recirculation fans should be in the auto position, and position the switch, your packs as desired. Right now I want the pack switches to be in the auto position. I will leave the isolation valve in the open position. I will verify that the engine bleeds are on. This is really important because the engines will later provide bleed air to pressurize the airplane. I can go ahead and turn on the APU, bleed air. As my APU is now on, APU bleed will be used to power the left pack. It will go through the isolation valve and also power up the right pack. Now the airplane is being provided with air conditioning, and the passengers will be very happy. Set up your cruise altitude. Today we said we're going to be cruising at 290, and your airfield elevation as well. Make sure that the pressurization mode selector is in the auto position. Again, all these things are extremely important. We all know what happened to the Helios, which crashed, partly due to the fact that this switch was in the manual position. This is the end of the overhead panel, but before we move down, you're just going to make sure that the lights are the way you want them. You're going to make sure that the steady light is on, because that light should always be on when the airplane has AC power provided to it. And once you're happy with the light positions, you can go ahead and move down, and you can arm your auto brake by moving the switch to RTO. That stands for rejected takeoff, and that will automatically apply full brakes if you reject the takeoff at high speed. We're going to be checking our engine instruments. Make sure that no engine indication is displaying some problem or an exceedances, and that you have enough engine oil to meet dispatch requirements. In our case, it's 12 quarters. Now this configuration shows percentage instead. We're going to reset the fuel flow, and again, it's important to do this as you want the fuel flow to be reset before you actually start your flight. I'm going to move down, make sure that the speed brake is in the down detent position, that the reversers are down and locked, and that the start levers are in the cutoff position. We're going to go ahead and set the parking brake at this stage, and make sure that the stabilizer, the stab trim cutoff switches are in the normal position, and they will be guarded to the normal position. So make sure that they're guarded, and you can now do the fire test again if you do not have AC power when you did it the first time. But because we have already done the fire test, instead we can go ahead and do the cargo fire test again if you didn't do all these before, which you already did. So we can go ahead and discard not only the fire test, but also the cargo fire test as well. After this, we're going to move down and verify that our rudder and aileron trim both are not only functioning, but they're free and zero. Zero meaning that they're showing 0 on the trim and 0 on the aileron. And that's it, folks. The airplane is now fully set up to start the engines. As you can see, there's quite a lot of steps which have to be done in a precise order, and it requires, again, airmanship and discipline. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, go ahead and leave a like. Please do subscribe, and as always, follow me on Twitch, where you can watch me live. I also have an Instagram where you can watch some cool pictures from the real airplane. This is Pod H. Until the next one. See you later.